Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Brohan. We are here with Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women with my co-host, Mary Olivieri.
All right. Hi, everybody. We're ready to have a really great conversation with somebody I'm so excited to talk about.
But first, I'm going to ask a question. So, Mary, do you know who Katherine Johnson is?
I do now, Liz, thanks to your notes. She is the NASA mathematician who calculated flight paths of rockets, starting with enabling John Glenn to orbit the Earth. Did I get that right?
You got it so right. And I don't know how I put these two thoughts together, but I always thought that if anybody deserved a cool walk-up song, it was Katherine Johnson. So, Mary, what do you think Katherine's walk-up song should be?
Okay, so I have to go to Bowie because I love him. And obviously Space Oddity, right? And the reason I choose Space Oddity is because it is an oddity for women to be leaders, especially at an organization like NASA. So in knowing we're about to have this conversation, I looked up some of the statistics. And for everybody out there, only 11% of women are astronauts or cosmonauts, according to the interwebs. Only 28% of senior executives and only 16% are senior scientific employees at NASA. So we are thrilled to be in the presence of one of these lower percentile people. It came out wrong, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
I'm thrilled to introduce Lori McDonald today, and unfortunately, we've just called her an oddity.
In a good way.
In a good way.
I'm happy to be an oddity.
Well, good. Let me tell you a little bit about Lori. Lori is somebody who has really taken a lot of risk and done a lot of exciting things in her career. You know, she started at NASA, which I think Mary just mentioned a minute ago, and now she runs two different companies. She runs Brilliance Business Solutions, which is an e-commerce marketing communications firm that has been listed on Inc.'s, fastest growing companies twice. And she also owns a food manufacturing company called Norslin Lefsa. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yay. Well, now it's your turn. What's your walk-up song?
What is my walk-up song? I don't know if you know it. It would be $1 Million Baby by Ava Max. And I like dance music. Actually, my husband and I were in ballroom dancing for a bit. So I like dancing. And also it's all about empowerment and self-worth, which I love. I love music about. We're worth it,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Takes me back to my Helen Reddy days.
So most women in their lives are never going to accomplish as much as you have already. I mean, it's really quite impressive. I want to find out, we've talked about risk together in the past. But what felt most risky for you in all of these roles? Which one do you feel was like the hardest thing, as a woman to really step in and do?
Oh, there are many.
Yeah.
I think about one. So I started Brilliance Business Solutions when I met my husband at NASA, actually.
Oh,
and
cool.
He eventually went to work for Rockwell Automation. And I was working at NASA in Houston, Texas. He was working at Rockwell out of a field office. And then he had a promotion to Rockwell's headquarters in Milwaukee. And so we came to Milwaukee in 1998. I was trying to figure out what could be as cool as space. And I decided to start a web development company. That's how Brilliance got started. So I started Brilliance while he was working at Rockwell. And his job was really paying the bills, paying for a home. And we were growing, but growing kind of slowly. And honestly, I wasn't paying myself in the business. I hired some other people, but wasn't paying myself. And eventually, I went to meet with a business coach who I kind of thought the idea of a business coach seemed a bit like a scam. Like I figured if you pay them enough money, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. But I was wrong. It was a really good thing. And when I sat down with the business coach, they said to me, "Is this a business or a hobby?" Because I was explaining to them that we had seen some good success, but I wasn't paying myself. And they said, "Well, that sounds like a hobby." And I was so offended, And yet they said to me, "Well, what do you want?" which I think is a really interesting question. And I think just taking a step back, I think a lot of times, speaking for myself, but I think for women in general, we're not necessarily good at either knowing what we want or naming what we want.
Oh, so I like that, naming what we want. Yep.
And so like being asked, what do you want? And then I was able to say, I said, I want to be able to pay myself. I want my husband to leave his job and come work with me. I want to be in an office space, which is funny. But at the time, our business was in our home and I wanted to move into office
Makes
space,
sense.
right?
Makes
and
sense.
so
Yep.
anyway, he said, well, what would have to be true? And I said, well, I'd have to I'd have to charge more money and no one would ever pay it. And he said, is that a fact or a belief? And I was like, man, he's right.
I have to pop in here with the fact or belief because it's so interesting how as a woman and women, often we limit ourselves based on lack of data and just this like, oh, I believe that to be true without actually seeing the facts. So I love that you said that.
Absolutely. Yes. And so I realized he was right. And so he said, what needs to happen in order for your husband to quit his job and come work with you? And we made a plan. And so that when you asked me about that was a scary moment to say that his job that is actually paying for our mortgage and all the things, it was kind of like this burn the ships moment. We didn't do it all at once, but we made a plan of what was going to need to happen. We raised our prices at Brilliance. People paid them generally. We lost a few over the years, but we also looked at what do we need to do to create the value that people would expect with that. And my husband leaving Brilliance or leaving Rockwell and coming to work with me gave us the ability to, for him to lead our development team so that I could be freed up to go do other things. And so that was just
to do almost everything else is what I'm guessing, right? I mean,
we've grown over the years. So progressively, I've let go of more and more responsibility, and now which enabled me to go, buy a food manufacturing company now. So, but yeah, there's been a lot of lessons in risk in that process. And a business coach once said to me, one of the things business coaches are great at is asking you questions. Is it a fact
like a therapist?
Or a belief? Yeah. And one of the questions they asked me was, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And so I put that question on my wall for a while because I think it is such a good question. And our fears teach us something. It doesn't mean we shouldn't always do the things we're afraid of, but sometimes we can if we get clear on what we're afraid of and why. I was afraid of raising my prices. Sometimes you might be afraid to hire that next person, or afraid to speak up about something that's important to you. But getting clear on what am I afraid of and why, and how could I maybe step towards that?
Yeah, I like the idea of combining two of the thoughts you just were talking to us about, writing down what you want, and then following that up with, what am I afraid of?
Absolutely.
I mean,
yes.
And I definitely coached young women, right? It's so interesting what I've noticed over the years, right? Is that specifically with the women that I've mentored, if they're not doing something, so say they have a task that they have to take care of by Wednesday, end of day, and they're putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. I learned that it was always fear. Like the reason they were putting something off and not going for it because they were afraid they didn't understand the assignment. They were afraid they weren't going to be able to pull it off, And so I really love that for our listeners to really think about, I love the sign, what are you afraid of, right? Because I think once it's identified, and you can underscore this, I imagine, once it's identified, it morphs into something else, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Then you can follow up with other questions like, well, what do I need to learn? Or who else do I need to talk to that has done this before? Usually we're afraid of things we haven't done before.
Lori, is there anything you're afraid of now?
Well, I think we're all always afraid. I'm always afraid of failure, right? And even in that, I realize that in failure, there is learning. And I remind myself of the ways that things may have felt like failures in the past, but what I've learned from them and gone on to do more things. So that is never the end, I think. And so, another practice that, I've been in business for a while. So there have been some hard times in business, times when things don't go the way you want. And another practice that has been helpful to me is to write down every day 3 things I'm thankful for. And I think when you are able to like reflect on, like, even in times that are tough, there are always bright spots.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
so I think the one thing you weren't afraid of is that I believe you actually donated a kidney. So somebody in
did.
this world is walking around grateful for your kidney, is my guess, right?
I did.
So we're
yes.
marrying the risk, the fear, and the gratitude all through kidney donation.
Tell us that story.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, well, it is quite a story. So my faith is very important to me. It has been since I was a kid, and I was in church. There was someone who was at my church who they got up in front of the church, and he and his wife shared that he was in need of a kidney, was looking for a living kidney donor, and someone I didn't know very well, and I went up and prayed for him and thought to myself, like, Lori, you volunteer for everything. And I do. I tend to be someone who volunteers for lots of things. So I said, you don't need to volunteer for this. You can pray for him. You know that other people are looking to help him out. There were several other people who said they wanted to go get tested to see if they could be a kidney donor. And so I didn't pursue it. And months went by. And I had a dream. I had a dream that I was in a hospital and that I was donating a kidney to this person. To Mike is his name. And so I woke up from the dream and I said to my husband, this was weird. I had this dream. And I said, is it possible? Like, this is God telling me I should donate my kidney? And my husband said, well, I don't know, but like, you should go get tested. What's the worst that could happen? So I was like, okay. So I went and got tested, and turns out I was both, when you donate a kidney, you have to figure out, are you healthy enough to donate your kidney is one question. And then, are you a match for the person you want to donate to? And even if you could donate a kidney into a pool of donors and a person still gets a kidney from someone else. But in this case, I was a match for Mike specifically.
Oh, wow.
And later when, and it progressed, eventually, I did donate my kidney to him and it all went well and he's doing well. And when the surgeons in that experience, like, it was just such an amazing experience, said, like, I was almost close enough to be like a family match, which is crazy because I didn't even know him before all of this happened. So just like, I don't know, whatever you believe in, I believe it was God in that, like, right? So serendipitous that, like, that was a miracle to me.
That you were given that dream as a gift from either your guardian angels or your spirit souls, whatever you believe in, but that was meant.
It was meant to be. Yeah. And so also I think about when we think about like risk or, I reflect back on times like that for me. Like when I think about I'm about to do something else that is scary, I remind myself, well, you did that other thing that was scary.
That's a great point.
And I think all of us can do that. We all have those moments that we can reflect back on, right? And remember that it worked out.
As we grow older and have more life experiences, right? So as I think of some of our younger listeners, it's almost like a resume. I know it's going to, in my mind anyway, it's going to sound strange, but you slowly add new things to it as you go through life. So if you're not naturally a risk taker, if you're listening out there and it's just not something you're comfortable with, start small, add it to your list. Because to your point, you have stuff to look back on and say, remember, I was terrified to do that. Well, I did it. Here were the outcomes, good and bad, but I did it. And so then the next one, maybe it gets a little easier. It's a little different in its approach. So I really like that as a bit of advice for
It could be a nice
people.
companion piece to here's the list of wants that I have, which we hardly ever do for ourselves. And then follow that up with exactly what Mary was just saying. Here's a list of accomplishments, things I've overcome. Yeah. You can match them right up.
I think that's so powerful because I think to this point, if we can identify what is it that we want, often the process of writing that down or sharing it with people, identifying what we're afraid of, because that's so often what gets in our way, and then reminding ourselves of things we've overcome in the past. I
just love that combination. I'm going to switch gears a little bit because in a previous conversation, we talked about you having an internship with NASA, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of women listening and men, if you're listening as well, we love you, brothers.
Yes, we do.
But Were there fears that you had taking an internship at NASA? That's a big step. Now, obviously, you're a brilliant woman on top of being a kick-ass one, but were there fears associated with, holy cow, I'm going over to NASA? I want to hear a little bit more about that if you're willing.
Many fears. Yeah. I mean, one of the really interesting things about the internship at NASA was that NASA, like specifically, was really working to create diverse and inclusive teams, which is a wonderful thing in the sense that when I went there were other women in their professional careers that were, ahead of me that could be mentors and that I could see succeeding in their roles. And that is a great thing to be able. And I know you had the numbers about how few, but they were there and they were respected in what they did and teamed well with others. And so that was helpful to me. But certainly I was afraid. And I also made some mistakes, while I was there. I made mistakes not in places that really mattered. They weren't catastrophic by any means, but things that were kind of embarrassing where I, talked on the wrong line in the mission control center or things like that. And, when I think about, but even then, like what is great is when you have people that are working with you that can show empathy, that both tell you what you need to do, right, but also support you to grow in that process.
So that's wonderful that you had that great experience.
Yeah.
Were there any challenges, any experiences while you were there that weren't so great? You don't have to name names or anything, but
Sure.
I think we're trying to make sure that people can learn from the good and the bad, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There were times when that didn't feel great or that didn't go the way I wanted. And I think, there were some instances where knowing now what I know, I think back on it and think, wow, I should have advocated for myself or asked for help. But at the moment, I didn't think of those things, right? And so I think if I could go back and say to myself, like I would tell me, what, you can be confident about who you are and what you know. I think many times in situations we feel like we don't want to ask a question because we're afraid of looking like we don't know what we're talking about, right? And yet so often we do ourselves a disservice in that process, or even saying in many instances, like when I was at Purdue in engineering school, like a lot of the men that were in the classes had past experiences in high school that I hadn't had. Like as an example, I worked a lot on a Mac as a kid, and a lot of folks worked on a PC as a kid, and it was just different. Like our experiences were different. And so there would be times when I wouldn't know something that everybody else would kind of have as common knowledge. And I think that isn't necessarily, no one was trying to prevent me from doing something, but they might not realize that I didn't have that background. And so I think recognizing we should speak up for ourselves and find other people that may have similar challenges and advocate for each other together.
I love that.
Yeah.
I recall, so I went from PC to Mac eventually. I'm not a digital native. I know I look super young, but I'm not. And I remember being in the Mac environment for the first time, and the control button, I kept calling it butterfly, right? So I'm like, so it's butterfly C and butterfly O, and they were all making fun of me.
Sure.
And but now I had a nickname of the butterfly, and frankly, I think that that's a lovely name to have, to be called a butterfly.
It is a lovely nickname.
I mean, you got to use a sense of humor as well. You got to be able to laugh at yourself a little bit, I would think.
Oh, absolutely, and also to remember, like in our differences, there is strength, and my style of leadership is more collaborative. And I think there is a benefit to that. And also I have learned over the years the benefit of being more direct in instances. And so I think both recognizing that the way I am naturally is a gift to people and seeing how that plays out, but also saying, how can I learn to adapt into other leadership styles when it's helpful? How can I learn from other people that do things differently?
I love the adaptation part because we all do, we evolve, we morph. Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit. You've told us so many wonderful stories. How does that translate to owning a food manufacturing company?
It's always stretching yourself a little bit, I think,
that
right?
Had to be a fear.
It was a fear because it was something brand new that I hadn't done before. It was, and so, it was a process of identifying, what am I afraid of? What could go wrong? Modeling out the different, the things what are my assumptions headed into this? What do I need to test out as a part of the process? And then also looking at, I think oftentimes for women and just people in society in general, we all have a lot on our plate. And so when we go to take on something new, when we look to buy Norz and Lefse, I knew I was going to have to not do some other things that I had been doing. And so that was a conversation we had with the Brilliance team is, okay, if we're going to go do this, like at the time, I was still Brilliance's sales engineer. I was, when you're in a small business, you don't just do one thing, you do several.
Many hats,
right?
wear many hats.
And so it was a matter of saying, okay, how do I hand off these other things I've been doing so that I can go focus on this?
You hit a really good point here. And I've run into this over and over again with employees, trying to teach them how to delegate, right?
Yeah.
I would love to hear, because I know that oftentimes we hang on to it all, or I'm going to be able to do it faster, so why should I?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, or give some advice to our listeners about how to delegate, and if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. I'm not always great at it. I think we all have that temptation, right? I could do it faster and it's easier and it'll be done the way I want it
to be done.
I think, I think mapping out, someone taught me to map out like in 4 quadrants, like what are the things, like to put on a spectrum, what are the things that I'm the best at, like what are the things I'm skilled at versus like less good at, what am I good versus less good, and what things do I enjoy? And so if you can try and focus on like keeping the things, ideally you keep the things that you enjoy and you're good at, and you delegate the others.
Love that.
Right?
That's a great piece of advice.
No,
because it's actionable. It's actual homework. You should all go out and do this.
It's a SWOT analysis.
It is.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
The reality is sometimes you don't have enough people to just delegate all the other things, and you have to do some things you don't enjoy, or maybe even that you're not that good at. Like maybe that's just the reality. Sometimes we do. But to make that the goal. And then also I think about part of it also is getting, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And I get anxious a lot about things that might negatively reflect on my business or on me or on us. And
of course.
Right. And so when you're delegating, I think part of the challenge is like, what if they don't do it right? Or, so like both setting expectations, training, but then also like questioning, okay, like if there's a mistake, is it really, like some things are really important that you get right, but also some things you can let go and give them an opportunity to learn from it. Like if you can let them experience what maybe didn't go right and learn from that, then that's a better teacher sometimes.
And I think it also kind of goes back to your thought about expressing gratitude. Yeah. I know one of the things I was always grateful for as a young woman was when people gave me the opportunity to fail.
Absolutely.
It was priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that that's tricky, right? In our world, you're under a lot of pressure to perform. Sometimes we don't have the time, or the budget to allow for that to happen.
Yeah.
I think the idea here, though, is if you're fostering a culture that allows people to fail. And I just, again, I love that quadrant because I'm a visual person, so I'm thinking about that as well. I think it's finding the opportunities where we can to allow ourselves to delegate, because there's growth not just for the person who you're delegating to. It's growth in yourself. Yeah. Like you said, you had to free up once you purchased the Lefse company. Thank you. You couldn't hang on to it all. You had to let go of some of it.
Yes.
I think that can't be easy. But all right, so now I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but I'm fascinated by NASA, the digital marketing company, a food manufacturer. I just want everybody out there to know, you can be a lot of different things in the course of your lifetime. Would you say that of all 3 of these experiences, and I'm sure you've had several other jobs in between, what did you take your core values with you, or is there something that you see as a consistency no matter what business you're in?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally, I enjoy helping others realize untapped potential. And I think that has been a common line. I mean, I don't know, maybe at NASA. I think at NASA, I was figuring out how to realize my untapped potential,
Sure,
right?
sure.
I was pretty young in my career journey. But I think, when I created Brilliance, it was about wanting to create a work environment that I wanted. It was very much about my values, like wanting to create. And I think for many small businesses, they both have it. They see a need in the market they can meet, and they also want to create something of their own. And so I wanted to create a place that where we, valued each other as whole people, where we allowed people to be authentic to who they were at work, where we created this great team that provided people the ability to, work flexibly when they need, but also to get really great work done for customers. Those things were true. And I think, the same things, I think you may have heard me talk a little bit in the past about, I'm a big believer in this idea of trust through healthy conflict, where I believe that we make better decisions as a team when people can voice dissenting opinions. And that is something that has been, it's a stated value at Brilliance, and it's something I brought to Norris and Lefse, which was new there in that environment. And yet folks really got excited about, because it's saying to the team, coming into that environment, I have not ever worked in food manufacturing. I know things about e-commerce sites, and I can help that. And I know things about growing and leading teams and companies, but there's a lot I don't know. And so I am very dependent, and I have a great team there who knows a lot. And so coming into a new space, being able to say, I'm asking you to not just agree with me and to tell me, when you have a different opinion.
And I'm telling you right now, I'm sure so many of our listeners would just love to go to work for you, because that's the kind of stuff you look for. You want a leader like that. So I'm sure a lot of people would love that. I love the spirit of what you're saying here. I know that we're close to wrapping up.
Well, I think that was the perfect segue, Mary. So if somebody did want to continue this conversation with you, they could reach out to you.
They can find me on LinkedIn at Lori McDonald, and also I'm at brillianceweb.com and norrisandlefse.com. So.
Well, she's everywhere.
She's everywhere. So reach out, everybody. And Lori, we can't thank you enough for being here today. I mean, honestly, you imparted so many words of wisdom. We're so grateful for that. And we're also grateful for our sponsors today. I'd like to thank the Motion Agency. They are a marketing communications firm, and they are the largest women-owned business in advertising in the Chicagoland area. And I'd also like to thank Embas. They're a marketing consulting firm. They do content development, change management, and marketing communications. So thank you to them.
Thank you to them. I'd also like to thank my mother, the OG kick-ass woman. But hey, until next time, right? Listen to us on YouTube. And any other place that you get our podcasts. You can also visit our website, which is at kick-ass-women.com. Again, thank you to our guest. She's a space oddity, as I like to say.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.